Greetings and welcome. How are we all feeling at the moment? Today's topic is on outcomes and circumstances. And a lot of us think about this in an extrinsic way, in an outward, external way. Our life happens because life happens. The inevitable happens because the inevitable happens. But it all has to do with how we view things and how we accept things. And remember, it has to do with perspective a lot of the time, because we have expectations and we expect a certain outcome. And we think that outcome is a result of our circumstances. But actually, we create our own outcomes through the circumstances that we respond to. Because outward circumstances are not going to change, but the way you respond to them will make a huge difference. Because yes, we cannot always control our circumstances, but we can either add or take away from it. And a lot of us think that our outcomes and our circumstances are predetermined by life, but actually not. You choose how to internalize it. You choose how to respond to it. You choose how to make meaning from it. And a lot of the times, our outcomes are a result of us processing our circumstances. And it also has to do a lot with how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others. Because if you relate to yourself badly, you're not going to manage yourself well in a difficult situation or conflict. And that is a circumstance. And the outcome may not be in your favor if you are not responding well. And if you cannot relate to yourself well, if you are struggling in your relationship with yourself, you're going to find it very challenging to deal with difficult circumstances. You're going to find it difficult to draw meaning from the circumstances. Because yes, we create our outcomes. Even if we cannot control our circumstances, it all has to do with how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others. Because if you are in a conflict and you are fighting and you are not relating well to a person, you are going to react to that circumstance, and that is going to create an outcome that may not be in your favor. And when it comes to outcomes and circumstances, you need to manage your expectations. Because if you are expecting something and it's a very high or unreasonable expectation, then the outcome is not going to be in your favor. Then you're going to have a negative view on a future circumstance, and that might make it very difficult for you to be able to process it, make meaning from it, create understanding from it. So if you don't manage your expectations, you are going to be disappointed by your outcomes. And the meaning you create from that will determine how you go on to present yourself to future outcomes, to future circumstances. Remember, outcomes are based on behaviors and decisions. What we say, what we think, and what we say yes and no to will determine our outcomes directly. As I said, a circumstance cannot always be in our control, but our outcomes are the way we expect things to be. And if you have a very difficult circumstance and your behavior is very erratic and you are very emotional, the outcome is going to be a very bad outcome. And if you are not making healthy, well-informed decisions, your outcomes are also not going to be what you want. They might actually be very negative or very detrimental. It's all about how we respond to things. It's all about how we make meaning. It's all about how we manage our emotional and cognitive processes in our minds. Because if you react to a circumstance, you're not going to get the outcome you want. But if you respond to a circumstance, you might be able to change the outcome of that circumstance. And it's very important that you watch how you respond in an emotional way. Because if you are too emotional, you cannot make healthy, well-informed decisions. And you might end up with an irreversible outcome that you never wanted. Oftentimes, we end up with the outcome which is the opposite of what we intended to create for ourselves. And the thing is, a lot of us are very quick to react. We get emotional, we get angry, we get frustrated, we get impatient. And because of that, we react. We react out of emotion. We don't think twice. It just comes as this one giant explosion. And reacting can actually cause issues regulating emotions because you are reinforcing the erratic change and shift of emotion. And reacting can also cause issues with problem solving. You might actually find yourself attracting more problems when you are not responding well to your circumstances, when you are not influencing good, meaningful, conducive, and helpful outcomes. And it's all about the meaning we make. It's all about what we make of our circumstances, whether we choose to learn from them, whether we choose to accept them, whether we choose to reject them, whether we choose to take it personally, whether we choose to use it to create more growth. But if you do not make a good meaning from a circumstance, your outcome is going to be very, very unfavorable. And it also has to do with the feedback that we receive. Because if we have been through the same circumstance in the past and we have received feedback like, oh no, you can't react that way, that's inappropriate, that's unacceptable, the next time you have that circumstance, you have already conditioned yourself to react or respond in a specific way. So we will not respond out of emotion to a circumstance that has repeated itself if we have not received the feedback first from other people and from the outcome in itself. And our meaning is really important because our meaning will determine the value that we create from life and the purpose we create from that value. And if we can't make healthy, positive meaning, we are going to find ourselves in the hot seat all the time. We're going to find ourselves reacting, not being able to handle difficult circumstances, and receiving outcomes that we never wanted and that can actually be extremely harmful. So be careful of how you make meaning from these things, whether you learn from your circumstances and accept it for what it is. And your outcomes are not a result of the past, but it's driven by it. Because future outcomes have nothing to do with what happened 2 years ago. But if what happened 2 years ago is relevant to today's circumstance, then yes, you are going to relate to the past to find an appropriate response, whether you should respond or react the same way or in a different way. So our past drives a lot of our decisions and how we make meaning from circumstances and how we receive our outcomes as well. And your circumstances and your outcomes all have to do with how you perceive problems. If you perceive everything as a problem, every circumstance as a problem, then every outcome will just bring more problems and more problems and more problems. So it's very important to become solution focused, because we attract more of what we already operate out of. And we relate to the past to find information on how to deal with future and current events. So be careful how you react and respond, because if you respond to a circumstance in a little bit of a different way, your outcomes could be miles and miles away of a difference. So remember, you are unique and valuable. Take care of that stunning person. Stay strong wherever you're from. You are worthy.